Hello. So I was just reading something, and it was about philosophy, about some books in philosophy, like what you should read and stuff like that. So I was like kind of preempted to make a video about it. I kind of thought about this to make an introduction to philosophy video, like what you should read, how you should get into it, and my personal views on it, my personal kind of take on it. Where do I kind of keep this whole notion of philosophy as? So let's just start with it. I do understand this is going to be a long video. I can just feel it that it's going to be a long video, even though I do not have a script or anything. But yeah, let's just start with it. So first of all, philosophy is basically what one derives as a meaning of life. This is like the most kind of base meaning one can have about philosophy. So in history, philosophy has been about inquiring about the nature of things and the nature of the self. So we have had these Roman philosophers, we have had these Eastern philosophers. They have talked about things from matter to the consciousness. They have talked about everything. They've talked about how does one, you know, wrestle with this idea of the self and the higher being or something like that, or how does one, you know, apply the sciences in regular day formats about anything, like how do you pick up this, and why does gravity why is gravity existing, and why does the earth, why is earth revolving around the sun. That is all philosophy to a point. And then it is then, and in the later period, that it has diversified itself from philosophy and turned into like this niche concept of science and on its own. So basically philosophy is the understanding and the questioning of the things that we do not quite understand on our own. Like we have to inquire about it. We have to have like this question mark to which we find answers by applying certain truths, by applying certain facts, and that is how we get to know, or let's say theorize about this philosophy. So over the ages we have had many philosophers, Eastern, Western, anyone. So basically most of these most popular philosophers that we can think of are from the West in today's date. You can just pick any, be it Nietzsche, be it Kant, be it, of course, Plato, Diogenes, Aristotle, the first way of these philosophers, then so on. You can just name many. In fact, even though that we have these West thinkers, like these Western thinkers, many of them have heavily relied on these ideas that have been pre-existing and kind of well thought out before their time in this zone of thinking. So I, of course, come from that eastern side of the globe, where I have had interactions with these eastern sets of mind and those kind of thinking. Of course, one doesn't understand it just by reading to it and just being, like knowing about stuff. You have to kind of experience it on your own. You have to apply it on your own to understand it better, and then you can kind of connect the dots about what is happening. So that's the thing. Personally, my view on Western and Eastern philosophy is, whenever I've read Western philosophers, whenever I've read anything, like even if there is like a small paragraph or an excerpt from a author or from a philosopher, it's many a times about figuring what is in the outside, about what is in the matter world. That is what most of Western philosophy is. And Eastern philosophy is not just understanding the outer world, but the inner world itself, the being itself. And that is the major distinction between many of these kind of books and things that you can read between the Western and the Eastern. Now, the Western philosophy deals with the mind, but the Eastern philosophy deals with the mind as well as the Atma, which is the self without this body. So that is kind of a very big distinction that I have came across between, going between these two topics and dynamics in philosophy. Now, I personally do not like the word philosopher, because every single human being is a philosopher, and that is why people who claim or like have this attached to them of philosopher is a totally debauchery of the self, of their own kind of existence, because you see, this word philosopher is attached by the people who do not understand. I don't believe a philosopher will call themselves a philosopher because to them these things are obvious. These aren't kind of like theories, or let's say these aren't things that are, you know, out there, and you have to kind of be like, like this, think about it for 10 days and then come up with the answer and be like, wow, that is it. No, I personally don't see it that way. But many on the other side, the people who can do not inquire as much may see it in that way. I know it is not to be put in a derogatory sense, and even I do not mean such things when I say that. Anyways, the reason I talked about, the reason I do not like the word philosopher is because it brings you down to, again, a very little box, and that is what I don't personally like, is that boxing of thoughts and things. And I mean, sure, to keep it in words it is important, but to go on with your everyday life and put those things in boxes is not a, elaborate, and not a personal good to do, which is, I strongly perform that, and I recommend others to do so. Anyways, it's up to you, whatever. But yeah, the point is, this is an introduction to philosophy. How should one approach philosophy, and what are some beautiful thinkers and writers you can refer to? Of course, everybody knows, the first philosophy books that you can ever come across are your religious texts. Any religion, be it Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, whatever religion you follow, your religious texts are the very basis of my take on philosophy, on my view of life and the world. So if you are getting started with philosophy, you are interested with philosophy, the first and the best thing and the easily accessible thing you can do is just look in your religious textbooks. Now look at them not from a point of a devotional sense that make everything just right. I mean, sure, those things are right, and that is why they are there. They are the, you know, confirmations of the things that have happened and of the things that are eternally true. So those are the confirmations. But if there are questions, let there be. Do not refrain yourself from asking those questions, because when those questions come, that means there is something to inquire about. There is something that you haven't fully understood. And when there is a question, when one interacts with the question, when one is in the process of questioning, one not only understands what he's questioning but understands oneself too. Like, sure, but on the other hand, there can be people who just question for the sake of questioning. Of course, that is a very foolish thing to do. You have to question with a mindfulness, and that is another thing that people should keep in mind while let's say going into philosophy. So yeah, the first step is to literally just read your religious texts and stuff like that, whatever you might pick up. And so yeah, just read it. If you have questions about it, keep that in mind. Try to figure it out. If you cannot figure it out yourself, maybe just look on the internet, or maybe read some books about the contemporaries, maybe look about the antithesis to those kind of arguments. And with that, what you really do is broaden your perspective about ideas and challenges that have to come, about conversations that are not as challenged. Because when you talk about religion, it is most of the times not questioned. So you should first be able to question the things that are not questionable. So start on with that. Through that, you understand this very important thing, that even though one can be right, which these religious texts and books are, many times are, and most of the times, forget, most of them, they are true, but it makes you understand that even when things are right, people can still question them. So, and that is human nature. So that is why starting off with religious books is a simple way to get into philosophy. Then of course you can read on to get a basic understanding of what philosophy is. You can read on many Western thinkers, philosophers, start from, Plato, Aristotle, all that stuff, go on to recent modern times with Nietzsche and Kant and all of that. I know all the people that are in between. Read through them, enjoy it. Now, again, the reason I say read on to Western philosophers first after going on to religious books is because you will understand, because the questions that you will have in mind while kind of reading through these religious books, the kind of a modern man question, like what is one supposed to do in this set of scenarios, in this set of life, the very modern life with machines and computers, what is one to do in that? The Western philosophers answered that and segregated it into very fine boxes. But again, as I said, I do not like boxes. Still, it is a very fine argument that they put through, and they give you this sort of code of conduct, this sort of, very particular framework about life and the mind, which I truly appreciate them to do that, to go through so much of turmoil to kind of put it all down. Of course, to have sorry, of course, to have, again, a broad knowledge of things, again a broad kind of perception of things. Don't just stick on to one set of writers or philosophers. Explore more, explore the antithesis of that, explore the things that they are against and you are against. Explore everything that is there to explore. And then, as I told you, after exploring these Western philosophers, go on to explore more esoteric Western philosophers, more esoteric thinkers like Alan Watts, or I don't know, anyone you can think of. And as you are exploring more of sorry, these more esoteric thinkers from the West, then come on to Eastern philosophy. And when you are coming to Eastern philosophy, again, first read the religious textbooks from our Eastern philosophy. I mean, of course, the major and the most popular are the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. So go on, read that. They are a kind of a show and tell about what Eastern philosophy is about. And once you have gone through that, you can of course read on to other commentaries like Upanishads. You can read on to Vedas. You can read on to all these things, which will also help you in your own personal life. It's not about confirming a religion or anything. The Vedas or the Upanishads are not about that. They are about eternality. They are about the eternal, which we call as Sanatan. And that is what I'm trying to tell, that philosophy cannot be put in a box. It is eternal, and that is why you should know it on the tip of your tongue. You cannot have this sort of line or a code by which you live, and that is only when the life happens. No, life happens in every second without anything. Either you like it, or even if you like it or not, it happens, and you have to be there. You have to experience that in its totality. You have to get sucked into that black hole of enormity. And that is what I kind of wanted to convey. And again, when you read these things, sure, sometimes you may not understand it, and that is a very important thing that I will just talk about in a minute. So when you are reading these Eastern texts, not just Indian, you can read Chinese texts, you can read Japanese texts, you can read anything Eastern. Read anything Eastern, you will have something more than you before had, because these thinkers, these so-called philosophers, these so-called, gurus, and all these people, they have went through so much of pure determination on meditation, on dhyan, on these questions of life for centuries and centuries of all this. Knowledge has been stored in the East for so long and with so many people. And that is why we, of course, did not kill Buddha. We, of course, did not kill anyone who even wanted to spread things which were against our norms of society at a particular time. So that is why you have to understand that our knowledge, even though not our knowledge, but the knowledge in general that was stored in the East, is far more vast and contains far many topics and of discussions and inquiries that you should really look into. So yeah, discover that. And then, as I was telling, that this is just not it. It's about experiencing it as well. It's about experiencing the things as well. So the reason I'm asking you to kind of look onto these books and writers is because so that you have words to put in what you are experiencing. So if I did not know English, I cannot put these things in word. If I did not know Hindi, I cannot talk about certain things. Again, there is a difficulty with English that I personally have, because some things are better to be said in Hindi, like these words which are related to certain feelings. Hindi does it the best, personally, for me, with those words. English doesn't, or else I just do not know the words for it. That's the thing. So that is why in order to kind of understand what you're experiencing. And when that experience happens, you have to go on with continue reading these, you know, philosophers, these thinkers, these writers, because at the end of the day, even they came through certain experiences and they wrote it down, they put that into words, and by those words we are able to connect it, we are able to kind of speak it too. And that is what Jesus did, that is what Buddha did. And that is the reason, once you read all these things, once you experience it, go again to those religious textbooks from which you once came. You read that and you be like, yes, damn, that is true, that is 100% true. And that is what I personally believe is the introduction to philosophy. I mean, I wouldn't say this is an introduction, this is the entire thing, the whole game, the whole plan. This is the whole thing about kind of inquiring into philosophy. And again, as I told, that philosophy is not something that should be bogged in by someone. It's everything. Like, every human being is a philosopher, because everyone in this life questions something or the other, and that is why, and that is philosophy. So yeah, that is what I wanted to say. And again, as you know, talks are real, so sub for these real talks, like this video, share this too, because again, as you know, I just do it for the love of the game, for I just do it for fun, man. So yeah, just sub to the channel. That's it. I'll see you in the next. If you have any questions regarding whatever I talked about, or if you want me to talk about something else, just drop in the comment section what you want me to talk about. That's it. I'll see you in the next.